Hello YouTubers, this is Music Store here once again with another one of my top 50 albums of all time. This one is number 20. Yes, you love it. It's a way of life. And today we're looking at Captain Beefheart's first debut album, Safe as Milk. Now I know some of you might not agree with this in here. To me, this is a fantastic record to listen to. Now let's just go through some of the songs on this album. It starts off, Sure Enough and Yes I Do, Zigzag Wander, Call on Me, Dropout Boogie, I'm Glad, Electricity, Yellow Brick Road, Abba Zaba, Plastic Factory, Where There's Woman, Grown So Ugly, and Autumn Child. And my first thoughts after listening to this was, if you're listening to this purely in what's come out already in the 1960s, this would be something that's a little different from what a lot of people are doing now. This was after Beefheart released a few singles already, and A&M picked him up, and then they dropped him, and it usually goes, I believe it's Captain Beefheart, Don Valet went and said that the reason they dropped him was because the guy running the label heard the song Electricity and didn't like it, thought it was too negative, and didn't want his daughter listening to it, so they dropped him. And it's always a part of who do you believe, and especially nowadays, who really do you believe? The other part about this album is that it just really, each song is not long. That's what I love about this, and this is something that goes into a lot of late 60s, mid-late 60s, early 70s, is you started getting longer length songs. These songs mostly, I believe that they were all pretty much within 1 minute, or within 5 minutes. Like, just quickly check this out. Yeah, there's not a song on this album that's more than 5 minutes. Now, I believe if you get the CD bonus track, you get some more songs, and some of those are a lot longer. But this album flowed very well. Now, the personnel on this album is Don Von Valet, Captain Beefheart on vocals. Probably, in my opinion, one of the most underrated vocalists of all time. Alex St. Clair Snofer on guitar and bass and background vocals, John Hanley on bass and background vocals, John French on drums and background vocals, and the very famous and accomplished Ry Cruder, who was brought in on this because of one of the guitar player, or I think the guitar player, I believe, left halfway through because he just didn't like it. It was too much for him. It was getting what would later become stuff like Trout Mask Replica, Lick My Decals Off Baby, that very avant-garde. And it always goes to that sound of Beefheart and all that. So for him, this was his first album. And Ry Cruder, very accomplished guitar player, blues guitar player, and one of my favorite guitar players of all time. Now, what did I feel like listening to this? It flowed very well. This album, there's one thing I'll give Beefheart. A lot of his albums, especially this first one, flowed so fucking well to listen to just feel the atmosphere. It's sort of almost with Sure Enough and Yes I Do, which is very Delta blues sound to it. And then you get like where it was going, like Zigzag Wanderer had a great blues feel to it. Call on Me had a great soulful thing to it. Dropout Boogie wasn't bad. I'm Glad was just 50s. It sounded like something you hear in the 50s, like really good 50s rock and roll. And then you get stuff like Electricity. There's the experimental side of Beefheart that I just love. Like Beefheart's voice, his vocals on that song were good. And then you get on to side two, Yellow Brick Road, Abba Zaba, Plastic Factory, Where's There's a Woman Grown So Ugly, and I'm Child. It's just some really great shit to listen to. And I think this is one of those albums that doesn't get enough recognition for actually experimentation and all that. Now, going into this album, there was a lot of, I'm not sure, pressure, because I seen a documentary on Captain Beefheart, and one thing Captain Beefheart said or I believe it was Beefheart or somebody else, said that there was a lot of pressure that they were thinking Captain Beefheart was going to be the American version of the Rolling Stones, which I could see. There is some part where maybe that's what they wanted with Beefheart because he didn't survive the label too long. Some of it's himself, some of it's other stuff, but this album, wow, guitar wise, musically, the Magic Band was just on this album, and then you get into here's where it goes, like the Brown Paper Bag album cover and all that for their next album. But it's the one after Trailmass Replica, and that's where I keep going with this. Is that this is where they were going to go, and it always goes to a quote I heard from I believe it's a friend of the band or whatever. He said something that really struck me in an interview once. He said, "For all the people that think Zappa is avant-garde, Zappa's good, but Captain Beefheart's the real deal." And that's always been there. What is the landmark of this album is that it is Captain Beefheart's first record. And some would believe, I think it's one of his more commercial sounding, but not completely commercial. And that's where I think the brain of Beefheart works very well, is that it's artistic. It reminds me a lot of like the Velvet Underground's first record, quite a bit, and it worked well. Now, signature song off this album? Oh God, there's a couple that I could really choose. I'm going to say Sure Enough and Yes I Do and Electricity, which are two of my favorite songs off this. And hidden gem off this album, I'll say I'm Glad. You could even throw Autumn Child in there. And even Zigzag Wanderer, I keep every once in a while singing on. And even Call on Me, you could call a hidden gem off this album. There's not just one hidden gem on this record. It's a very good record. I really stress, if you ever get the chance to, buy that record. It's just a phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal record to listen to. And it goes back to something, because I know there's another Beefheart album that's going to end up on this list, just so you're forewarned. So once again, this is Music Store here with my top 50 albums of all time. This one is number 20, Captain Beefheart's Safe as Milk. Please be sure to like, comment, favorite, subscribe down below, comment all you want on it. This is Music Store once again. Peace.